everyone, it's Kerri-Ann and I'm back with another fine liner overlay. So I have done a base layer here of watercolour. This is quite an old one that I did a while ago, and I'm just going to show you again how I do my fine liner overlays. So if you've watched some of my other videos or seen my other artwork, you'll know that I work very quickly, very roughly. I certainly do not want it looking perfect and getting it right on the edges of the watercolour. What I like to do is work really quite fast and free motion. I like it to be quite figurative. That's how I like my illustrations and pictures to look. So as you can see, I work moving my wrist quite a lot, and I do various strokes and marks, and what I do is I sort of do them quite quickly. I like to have double outlines. If I have just a single outline, it can look like I have sort of just messed up or just been lazy and not quite done it right, but if you have multiple overlines, you can see that it's part of the style. So that's why I like having sort of double lines. I like to add lines in for texture on the leaves as well, and obviously you can see for this type of leaf I'm just using straight down strokes. Here I'm just adding a bit more depth of colour. I just want to have a few more strokes to indicate that it's sort of darker, and then here, because I want it to look like it's rounded, I'm just curving slightly. Again, keeping it quite rough. I don't want it looking perfect. This isn't a sort of an outline of a drawing, for example. This is very much a rough figurative overlay. Now obviously you can see the beautiful blending that I've got here with the watercolour, and I'm going to use that, I'm going to keep that, but I'm going to change the marks that I make now with the fine liner. I'm using a uni pin today, so it's water and fade proof, and I'm using size 2 at the moment. So at this point, this is where I decide how I'm going to shape to sort of give the idea that it's a hyacinth without doing sort of, you know, detailed work. As much as I love, you know, working on fine liner detail, I much prefer working in my sort of free motion figurative work. So let's just have a go at seeing what pattern I want to make here to make it feel like it's a hyacinth. So the hyacinth is sort of, they're never, from the hyacinths I've got certainly, the leaves are sort of a bit all over the place, of the petals rather. They bend and fall over, all different shapes. Some of them grow properly, some of them don't. So what I'm going to do is make it so that they're sort of jaggly petals, and obviously they're very close together and overlap each other. So I'm not trying to look at the petals I created with the watercolour. What I'm doing is just using that as a guideline, but wiggling them around. And you can see I'm not doing it in a sort of soft way. They're not as the petals would be on a hyacinth. It's very much wiggly, fast motions, just to give you the idea of it being a hyacinth. Now I'm going to actually add some squiggles on the centre of it as well, so you can sort of see the central part of the flower. It just gives it a little bit more of an idea of what it is. And down here you'll notice that you can actually, because the colours are lighter, you can either switch to a finer fine liner. That's one way of giving the idea that it's lighter, or you can free up and go even more loose. You don't want to have these sort of visible edges, and some of these are quite sharp. You could have gone more rounded, but I quite like how these are turning out. So I'm just creating sort of the inner parts, and down here they're much closer together. So up here you can see gaps. Down here I'm going to do it so that they're much closer and overlapping as they would be on the hyacinth. This is where they're just starting to grow at the bottom. Again, I'm just going to add some detail, some shading on the inner. And you can be really, really loose and free with these. You can even add ones where there's white, and don't forget you've got that strong line there of the edge of the leaf there. There we go. The other key thing is to know when to stop, so when it's finished. as it is, I believe now I've got enough detail up here. I don't need to add any more. If anything, it would just be a few more detailed parts for the centre of the flowers. Missed that one out there. But it sort of gives you an idea of how I use the pen, how quickly I move it, and how freely. I don't make it fine and detailed. I want it figurative and fast, and that's how I work to create the illustration style that I work in. So hopefully that has given you a glimpse into my world of illustration and how I create the pictures that I do. And personally, this is how I like them to sort of be finished, and then often I'll sort of sign right next to the piece or sign away from it, depending on whether it's going to be turned into a card or if it's a commission piece or if it's going to be framed. Will depend then how I sign it. So I'm going to leave this one be. I think this will probably turn into be a card, possibly framed into a sort of a tall, thin picture as well. So thanks for watching, everyone, and let me know what you'd like to see next in my illustrative style.